Hello, and welcome to Bomb Squad Matinee. I'm your host for the first time on Matinee, Ethan Hawker, and with me I have...
Rein, Conversi,
Tim M. Sullivan,
Tanner Richard Kraft.
I'm Austin Zwiebelman.
And we're joined for their fourth time overall, first time on a matinee, by...
Lauren DeVito.
They don't hate us yet.
I love you guys. Come on.
Yeah, and we love you too. And we're super excited to have you with us as we return to that banner year of 1973 to discuss René Laloux's psychedelic animated SF classic, Fantastic Planet. Before we dive in immediately, Lauren, our Chicago-based friend, I just wanted to give you the opportunity at the front to plug any projects, anything like that. Just introduce yourself to those who might have missed the previous appearances too.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Lauren. I've been on this podcast, I think 3 previous times. I was on for the Barbie movie and Good Will Hunting and Groundhog Day, because Groundhog Day is my birthday. Yeah, haven't really had anything to plug in the way of anything creative lately because this fall I got hit by a car, and I just haven't been feeling real creative. I've kind of been focused on healing my broken legs. So happy to be on here with y'all tonight, and yeah, really happy to kind of be back in the saddle and writing things again.
Well, we're very happy to have you, and extremely sorry to hear about the incident with the car. Jeez. It's great to have you back as we dive into the wild and wonderful Franco-Czech co-production that is A Fantastic Planet. Before we dive straight in, I want to do a kind of very brief preamble talking about it. So first, we're going to go back to the year 1982. No, 1892. That's a weird thing. Not like a super well-known thing about animation history is that animation arguably predates like cinema. With Emiliano's Theater Optique. The first film to use perforations and to be publicly exhibited was his adaptation of Porpello. And of course, the first theatrically exhibited cell animation, what we think of, is Emile Cole's 1908 film Phantasmagorie. The Emile Cole Prize, as we all know, was given to René Laloux for his work with mental patients in the late 50s and early 60s, particularly the Dents Dîner, the monkey's teeth, which is a wonderfully weird sort of Kafka-esque, quote-unquote, I guess, Lynchian, dreamlike, other buzzwords. Really interesting short film from 1960 that would ultimately lead to him working with illustrator Roland Topor on a couple short films in Le Temor and Le Escargot, both of which would directly result in him helming an animated feature that began production in 1967. A lot of those previous films used like a variety of techniques, but most primarily like cutout animation, primarily illustrating Topor's animating rather Topor's illustrations. And with a few grants in hand, he started work in 1967 on Fantastic Planet, which would be completed in 1973 due to several production stoppages because, fun fact, Eastern Europe, kind of a nightmare to work in the late 60s, early 70s. So you kind of get where we're coming at here. You know, it's co-production between France and then Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. Sort of fraught, made by some artsy-fartsy weirdos in Roland Topor, an illustrator, Daddy's Boy, many other things, and René Laloux, who's best known for working with mental patients on several animated films, which are good and impressive. And that leads us into a completely unrelated introductory question, which is, what is your favorite movie about an alien world? Starting us off, Tanner.
Oh boy. Okay, so when I first saw this warm-up question, I thought to myself, this shit easy. And then I looked at the amount of movies I like, and I was like, wow, there's actually not that, there's a lot of sci-fi, but like there's not that many movies about specifically just a alien world. Like if I wanted to be fast and loose with the definition, I could be boring and say Star Wars, but I won't say that because that'd be boring. You said alien world. So I looked at all the movies that's on like my all-time favorite movies list, and I landed on a specific one, which came out, if I remember correctly, around the same time as this movie, maybe a year before this movie, which is in what, in my opinion, Andrei Tarkovsky's masterpiece, Solaris. Is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies. It's my favorite Tarkovsky movie. I know that may be blasphemous when Stalker exists, but I've always just been a sci-fi boy at my heart. It's, I think, a really brilliant movie, and it's, you know, obviously about an alien world. There might not necessarily be aliens in it, but alien just means not of here. So, I could watch Solaris every day for a week, and I think just like never get bored of it, which is impressive considering that's like a 3-hour movie. And if you, my friend, are interested in watching Andrei Tarkovsky Solaris, you can pause the video you're watching right now, go to the search bar. I guarantee you there's a high quality upload of it on this website. Yep. Because copyright in the Soviet Union, not really a thing. So
it absolutely was a thing and directly contributes to the limited distribution of several classic animated films. However, Solaris does in fact whip ass. Go watch it.
Yeah, watch Solaris. It's on YouTube, I guarantee it.
Great movie, great novel. Love Lem Stanislav. Tim, favorite movie about an alien world?
Yeah, I kind of had similar issues with Tanner because there are a lot of movies I like that involve aliens, but it's usually either them coming to Earth or they're on a spaceship. So not quite as many that are actually exploring the worlds. But the film I'm going to talk about today is actually a short film, short animated film from 2016 called Scavengers. It's a very interesting animated short, just showing some people, some scientists exploring this alien world and showing these just crazy animations, very like psychedelic looking animations of like the aliens and the life forms on the planet. It's just a really solid 8-minute short. Again, you can watch this on YouTube. It's 8 minutes. Go do it. But it also recently inspired a series called Scavengers Rein, which is I finally watched the first episode of the other day, and that's a really good show, at least from what I've seen. I would definitely recommend checking that out. Warner Discovery is a fucking dumpster fire right now, but this is the kind of project that I would recommend giving some support to, if you're able. So, Scavengers/Scavengers Rein. That's my pick. Back to you, Ethan.
Heck yeah. I didn't specify what type of film, too, but shorts are a really great vector for movies about weird and fun landscapes. And I've heard excellent things about Scavengers Rein. I really need to check it out for myself. Looks incredible. Speaking of Rein, what's your favorite movie about an alien world?
Like everyone else, I guess, I also struggled to find a movie that fit this criteria. I guess if I was sticking to the literal interpretation of the question, after thinking long and hard, I guess I would go with The Martian. It's a really well-made movie. Probably it's gotta be Ridley Scott's best movie of like the 21st century. It's not like the best track record.
Everyone started to tense up when you said best Ridley Scott movie. Everyone went. Then he said 21st century, and everyone went.
Definitely of the last decade. Like, I don't think that's up
easily
for debate. But I mean, yeah, it's like, you know, it's a great movie. You know, human perseverance against the harsh landscape of Mars. Yada yada, but like I feel like my actual answer would have to be like The Land of Oz, but specifically not the Wizard of Oz, the 1939 version, which is great, wonderful, still holds up great. I've used great twice, but my favorite version specifically would be the weird 80s quasi sequel, Return to Oz.
Oh yeah,
that is arguably my favorite kids movie. It is, I think, in pertains to this, you know, it's not, you know, literally an alien world. I'm more of a fantasy guy than a sci-fi guy. I think it just really captures, it just has like this right balance between like being really weird and dark but like also childlike whimsy that's really just perfect for me. And it feels like an alien world in a in a looser sense of the word alien, and it's amazing, and I love it. And man, I haven't done one of these forever. Anyway, back to you, Ethan.
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying, both about not doing one of these in a while, but also describing the Land of Oz as a particularly alien world. I think that's a completely fair sort of take, because it is sort of like a fantasy setting. Is Oz an isekai? Question.
I almost went with Mad God for this. I was like, this is more of a hell world. Like, it's still capturing the spirit of the question, but
In that case, I changed my answer to the 2004 Doom movie starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Hell yeah.
Sorry,
Austin.
go ahead.
Favorite movie about an alien world?
Our Father Jesus Christ, please stop giving me your toughest battles. It is so fucking hard to pick which Paul Verhoeven movie to choose for this answer. Do I pick Starship Troopers or do I pick Total Recall? I'm not fucking picking on the Silver Globe, okay? I'm gonna live my life and have fun with it and embrace fun things, okay? Probably gonna pick Starship Troopers, though. You see, it's kind of clever. In Fantastic Planet, the giant blue drogs treat humans like insects, even though they have feelings and don't deserve to get massacred. And in Starship Troopers, the humans treat the bugs like insects, even though they have feelings and don't deserve to get massacred. In a way, they're the exact same movie. As Roger Ebert once famously said, there is a certain French quality about Starship Troopers. So yeah, I'm picking the 1988 Starship Troopers OVA for 1,000 points. Our gracious host, Ethan, loves the Starship Troopers OVA, don't you, Ethan?
Famously, it's great. It's the key to success and true happiness. We can make it. Whoa, whoa, we
Am I having a
can
stroke?
make it.
You thought the animation in Fantastic Planet was minimal? You're not prepared for opening number 2 of the Starship Troopers OVA. It's just a bird for 2 minutes.
Is this real?
Yeah, it's real.
There's a Starship Troopers OVA?
Go look
Oh,
it
it
up.
reeks.
Ethan was hiding this from me?
It's not good. I've been protecting you, Tanner. You don't understand. I love Kazutaka Miyatake's mechanical designs. That's it. That's all it's got. I mean, no, it's good. Go watch it. They somehow did the same thing where they made the Puerto Rican a blonde with blue eyes. Very incredible. Sorry. But no, that's a really good answer. Starship Troopers. Great movie. The Paul Verhoeven one. Really fun. I love it taking the piss out of Robert Heinlein, a terrible man whose fiction I loathe. Just immediately going into the hot takes. Lauren, what is your favorite movie about an alien world?
Yeah, I've got to go with Austin and say my favorite is also one that's about kind of an insect race of aliens. And I'm going with the 1902 short film, A Trip to the Moon. I think it's really charming.
Let's go.
I love that you get to see like a good look at early filmmaking and set design and everything like that. It's a adorable movie, and it's 14 minutes long, and we don't need any more 3-hour movies. 14 minutes is enough. It's enough.
I think film in general, once you got away from the limitation of one reel, just really went downhill.
Yeah.
No, I think A Trip to the Moon is a great pick. Speaking of, early cinema and that sort of thing, thank you for kind of tying that into my intro. That worked out kind of nicely, because that's a really wonderful film that has a lot of interesting things going on about it, like the fact that every individual copy had to be hand painted for coloring and that sort of thing. A lot of wonderful stuff. Those Lumiere films are all incredible treasures, and should be cherished for all time.
I like the shot of the rocket in the moon.
It's iconic.
Good shot.
There's a really good parody of it on Futurama. They're like, oh my god, I think they're at a boardwalk, and there's a character walking around, and he gets hit in the eye with, I think, a beer bottle from Bender, maybe. I don't know. I could be making this up, but it's definitely there was a parody.
That sounds
of it in
familiar.
Futurama.
Yeah.
My favorite movie about an alien world. This one was, again, kind of hard because my instinct was the Transformers the movie, but that's about many alien worlds. So, trimming it down a little bit, probably my overall favorite is going to be the 1986 Koichi Mashimo animated feature Dirty Pair, Project Eden, which is the Dirty Pair animated feature film. It's a lot of fun. Koichi Mashima is best known for probably directing Dirty Pair, Project Eden, but he also directed a lot of really great Gals with Guns kind of material. And Dirty Pair Project Eden is just a really pretty movie. Like, it's incredibly attractive and colorful, even when there is a lot of like metallic interiors, but they end up just being like complex and foreboding. There's a lot of extremely expressive, fun animation, and of course the banter between Kei and Yuri, the eponymous Dirty Pair, is a lot of fun. I just kind of love it. It's difficult to articulate. The soundtrack is also incredible. Just a really fun, sort of peppy J-pop soundtrack. And it all culminates in a really kind of special feature that encapsulates a lot of the joy of the Dirty Pair like television series and OVA. It's probably my favorite material from like the larger franchise, even there. And it's got a lot of fun, like weirdo aliens and some cool set pieces. Not as many like landscapes and stuff like Pharaoh and Nolandia, but everything is so heightened in general that I can't help but feel that it really wonderfully captures a super alien setting in that way. So that's my pick. But now that we've discussed alien worlds, it's time to move on to our actual thoughts on Fantastic Planet and Yigam, the alien world prominently featured in Fantastic Planet. So I wanted to get bird's eye view overall thoughts, as per usual, on the film. Tim, if you'd like to start us off here.
Yeah, Fantastic Planet is just a great classic science fiction film. Like, obviously, looking over that first question, I kept wanting to go, Fantastic Planet. No, that's the movie we're talking about. Can't do that one. But it so perfectly encapsulates that just idea of seeing this world and all of its eccentricities. Admittedly, I think the first time I watched this, I largely got kind of lost in the visuals of it. I think with something this like artistically driven, it can be very easy to focus on that and not see the forest for the trees. But this time I definitely got the moral message, which is that when a man starts singing opera at you, the morally correct thing to do is to choke him violently.
Brief intermission, because as soon as that scene happened, Tanner messaged me and said, that's what you want to do to me every time I sing. And all I could think of was good bit, objectively correct, but also good bit. Sorry.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, it's a great film with a great message about an oppressed people uprising. I looked on the Wikipedia and it was talking about how like a lot of people were taking either messages of racism, which is largely what I got, but then there's also this degree of like animal cruelty to the message, and it's just kind of like you can take whatever allegory you want, it's all correct. I think there's just a lot to that, which I appreciate. And again, just a visually stunning movie. Like Austin mentioned before, yes, the animation is very limited, but it makes up for that in spades with just everything it's able to do with that limited animation, just stylistically. Just a great animated piece, and I'll leave the rest to the rest of the dais here, but suffice to say, movie good. Back to you.
Movie good. Movie fantastique.
Hey.
No, I'm really glad you enjoyed it so much, and I think that's sort of what you can come away with. It is almost like a children's story or that sort of thing. It is. There's a lot of allegory to sort of be picked from this work. I think the racial allegory is probably the one that stands up most prominently, but again, like animal cruelty or even like just human complacency and over-reliance on technology in a way that sort of stifles our ability to communicate with nature and that sort of thing is arguably, a pretty big theme of this here movie. But again,
real quick, you mentioned it being like sort of like a kids movie. I also read that this apparently was the first PG animated film, which also I think today it would be fucking rated R, because there's so much nudity and violence and blood and death. Just wild what you could get away with in the 70s.
Yeah, I saw that it was rated PG, and I'm like, inexplicable. I don't think the MPAA actually watched it. Like, I don't know how this happened.
They were just like, okay, this is definitely not G, but it's cartoon, so for baby, right?
The American distributor just like went to the MPAA and said, PG, please? And they said, fine.
You know, if the parents
René
say
Laloux
you can see the
himself.
cartoon boobies, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, René Laloux himself said, it's French. Boobies are legal there. You have to understand.
That should be
The
like on the
MPAA
French
was
flag.
like-
I want that printed on the French flag. Boobies are legal here.
It's if like all of Laloux's films are kind of like this, Gandahar especially, but in Fantastic Planet, there's also a lot of it. But no, yeah, it's a really special, very visually driven film, and I'm glad you had a good time with it. Rein, overall thoughts?
All right, another reoccurring theme here where we come for the crazy unique visuals, and then we stay for the allegory on racism. The work allegory, I thought it communicated the ideas clearly and effectively. I feel like I guess the way it reminded me, what I was reminded most of was sort of the War of the World style of social commentary, where it's like, what if the oppressor was some alien and the oppressed looked like you, assumed audience member who, I assumed this was just a French production. I didn't know it was also done with Czechoslovakia. So I just, in my head, I was like, oh, this is these are supposed to be French people who are seeing what colonialism and all that feels like. That's what the vibe I was getting from it, and I don't know. I thought I can see arguments for and against that style of social commentary. Anyway, the scene where the Drog kids were like playing with the humans, like little playthings. I thought it was just a nice little bit of commentary on like how social ills are normalized and encouraged to continue on to new generations. Other than that, yeah, it's I think just a very not exactly appropriate for kids, but it is kind of a kid's fairy tale is kind of a good way of imagining it, I feel like. Back to you, Ethan.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely correct. I think it has, again, the quality of like a 19th century, both artistically and in terms of content in a lot of ways, like a children's book. In one of the interviews, I know Laloux describes it as having a Rabelaisian sort of absurdist humor quality to it, which I definitely tracks. But again, there is a weird like naivete to its whole framing that I greatly appreciate, and I think really helps it land. I feel like if it was super stark and serious, it wouldn't be nearly as effective, because it is knowing. Sometimes not so much. Sometimes it's clear that it's just a quality of the visuals being a little silly or a little awkward, but I think it is very effective at delivering its allegory in a package that contains multitudes. But Austin, your overall thoughts on the film?
Well, first thing I want to say is kind of basic, but this is, to me, a cornerstone of stoner cinema. There are few experiences quite like the first time you get baked and watch Fantastic Planet.
I'm about to watch Fantastic Planet for the 4th time in my life.
Hell yeah, baby! For today's purposes, and kind of for the sake of being entertaining, if not a bit reductive, I'd wager to say there's like 2 types of stoner flicks. There's movies that become more enjoyable when you're baked, stuff like Caddyshack, The Big Lebowski, Muppet Treasure Island, laughter and good vibes kind of films. Then there's movies that benefit massively from that extra amount of thought that people pay when they're under the influence of a psychoactive substance. Stuff like Inherent Vice, Koyaanisqatsi, Fantastic Planet. This movie is chock full of 1970s surrealist imagery where it's easy to project a certain, whoa, man, this says a lot about society onto it. And that's what you're supposed to do here. That's the intended effect. They've got this episode of this old French TV show called Italiques, included as like a bonus feature on the Blu-ray. And you can find the illustrator, Roland Topor, saying that he liked to think of his art as sort of a container that people fill with their own interpretations. And while you don't necessarily have to get high to participate, it certainly can help people get, like, immersed in the presentation. The second thing I want to note here was the way that this movie emphasizes the drog culture's prominent fascination with meditation. It's the main focus of their society. They basically use meditation-induced astral projection in order to, like, have sex and do intergalactic diplomacy. And just like us, they really like having sex. There's this really thought-provoking parallel going on between people as the dominant species on Earth, where you can mostly contribute that to like our super developed brains, and the Drogs as the dominant species on Yam, who seem to have reached this stage in their evolution of their intelligence where it made them feel almost comically detached from important elements of physical reality. You see, one great flaw of the human mind is, due to our particular brand of metacognition, our potent sense of self-awareness that somehow differs from, like, Axel the Parrot or Coco the Gorilla, is that sometimes we convince ourselves that we are uniquely separate from nature. We've got transistor gates that are like 1 carbon atom thick. We have cloned more than 20 different types of beast. We can talk to each other across oceans in a matter of milliseconds, but we're also haunted by our tendency to fuck up really simple things. Simple things like living in harmony with nature, not oppressing other living creatures, stuff that really bites you in the ass later. And this movie makes that so easily digestible by doing a Planet of the Apes story where the people are the apes. And it's so delightfully in tune with the sort of Tim Leary version of the 70s that the Drogs are so detached from physical reality, even though they can literally teleport their minds to the moon. This is the future that we're heading towards if we let those hippies keep dropping acid. We're gonna get dunked on by the secret world of Arietti motherfuckers. Speaking of Leary, Fantastic Planet is a French-Czech co-production. Here's a little Bomb Squad exclusive history lesson. After LSD was first synthesized by Albert Hofmann at Sandoz Laboratories in 1938, for a long time, Sandoz was the only place in the world that knew how to synthesize the compound. The second group in the world that cracked LSD synthesis were pharmacists in Prague, the capital of former Czechoslovakia. Sometime around 1961, you used to be able to get LSD in Czechoslovakia from your doctor. There was a metric fuckload of acid floating around in specifically that country. And I think all this is significant because you know, the whole way the movie is. All in all, Fantastic Planet is a really special kind of movie. Rare bird, not many others like it. It has qualities you probably won't find anywhere else. It's Monty Python cutout animation, it's distinct 70s synthesizer sounds, and God, do I love those zoom-ins on people's static expressions. Fantastic Planet is a bicycle for the mind. Go ride it. Back to you, Ethan.
No, that's a lot of really great insight there, particularly regarding reading more into the psychoactive qualities and thematic content and diegetic narrative content in that way. I think that's something that eludes me a little bit as someone who's a miserable narc and square who doesn't really do drug. I'm not really a narc, but I am a square.
You narc on me all the time.
But that's because you deserve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called justice.
Justice. Yeah, exactly. He gets it. I am the ohms, and you're that guy who's stepping on all the ohms in the park. You have to understand. You're the drug.
I'm the guy that dies.
When you die, your eyelids are going to do a crossfade and cover your eyeballs. I'm not going to close them. It's just going to be a film transition. That's how you know you made it as a
I don't think I'm
filmmaker.
cool enough to be the guy that gets killed. I'm the fucking coward that runs away, I think.
Yeah, sure. I don't know why that really got me, mostly because I thought about his run cycle, and it's very funny. Imagine watching your best friend get owned by a bunch of tiny dudes in fruity leotards.
Be like if like a bunch of like Beatles just like took me down. If John, Paul, George, and Ringo took me down.
This is what they're always talking about when they talk about the urban legend about them playing the Hobbits. I had more cogent responses to Austin's commentary, I swear. No, especially the bits about Prague and that sort of thing, spotlighting this is a Czech production. That also explains so much about everything they were doing, on both the Czech New Wave and all their wonderful stop-motion animations. Oh my god, sorry, I'm still recovering. Oh.
That's okay, take your time.
My apologies. Tanner, your overall thoughts on the film?
So, like I said before, I think I said this before, this might have been before the recording. Regardless, I haven't seen this movie up until before about an hour ago. So, I don't even think I really knew what this movie was about. I had like no idea, like I thought it was just about blue people. And then I realized I was watching Avatar, so I put on the correct movie, and then it was still about blue people, but then these little humans showed up, and this still sounds like Avatar. Hold on a minute.
No.
I've reverse engineered Avatar out of this movie somehow. James Cameron can thank me later. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. I had really no idea what it was about, and my first takeaway from the movie, Austin touched on this briefly, it was how impressive the music is. It's not a very traditional film score at all. I swear to God, I heard some electric guitars in there at some point, though maybe that's just, I sometimes confuse synths and electric guitars. I don't know why. But I'm pretty sure it was electric guitars, which is always cool to hear in a film score. That's not really a traditional instrumentation, but the instrumentation of the score in general is very unique and leads to a very interesting, dare I say, alien sound that really adds to the atmosphere and the vibes of the movie. My second primary takeaway, I thought, was despite the more minimal animation, just how gorgeous it was. Gorgeous? What the fuck is a gorgeous, Tanner? How gorgeous it was. From the opening scene of just this, like, you see this mom and her child running, and you're like, what's going on? And the next thing you know, this giant fucking blue hand comes out of nowhere and just starts flicking her. And I was like, oh shit, okay. So like these dudes are like hella tall compared to us. Excuse me. And I just sort of felt myself absorbed, just totally absorbed in the picture. Really only opened my phone to text Ethan that he would commit great acts of violence on me if I ever dared express joy in his presence by singing. As Ethan said. What's the difference? And I just felt myself be totally absorbed in it. And I'm gonna lightly step on a hot grenade here and say about halfway through the movie, I thought to myself, I'm gonna be vague about this because I'd like to be employable in the future. How relevant to our current moment in time this movie felt? If you've seen the movie, you'll understand what I mean. Felt really relevant right now. And I think a mark of a great movie is that, almost unfortunately in this case, how much its themes can resonate even 50 years later, how relevant and resonant they can still be. And I thought it was really wonderful exploration of the, you know, anti-racist themes, the anti-oppression themes, and specifically I also got a lot of vibes of like my read of the movie was almost 50-50, it being an allegory for oppression, but also about how we need to treat the environment around us better. About 20, honestly, until the halfway point, I was only really getting the environmentalism read. I think it was around the time that Tara, our main character, escaped, that I think I started to put two and two together about what this was an allegory for. And I think it's really wonderful. I will say that, but I also thought of the animation, while it is beautiful, it also reminded me of the kind of movie that I would accidentally, as a 7-year-old, just discover while flipping channels in cable and just become absolutely terrified of what I was witnessing. Because I was watching TV after 11 p.m. and my mom said no, but I was breaking the rules and this is my punishment. I do have to say that there was one little weird thing about the movie to me, which is that like the last 5 to 8 minutes are incredibly rushed. Like we go from hey, we might be able to escape this planet before they genocide us, to hey, we fixed everything and now we learn about it in school. Like that felt so incredibly rushed that it gave me whiplash. And I'm sure, as Ethan alluded to earlier, there were a bunch of fucking delays, budgetary constraints. I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons why this movie isn't longer, but I really wish it could have expanded upon like another 10, 15, 20 at the most minutes. I think could have really fleshed out the movie more. And, I think really drive those points home, because as it stands, that like the last 10 minutes is like, we go from, oh fuck, we're gonna die, we know how to build rockets, destroy their religious sites, everything's fixed in 10 minutes. And it's very rushed. I still enjoy it. I just think that that is like, if I were to be a nitpicking asshole, I just wish that they could have fleshed out that ending a little more. It's still a very brilliant movie though, and I would like to thank you, Ethan, for introducing me to it. You introduced me to a lot of animated movies that aren't from America or Japan, and I find myself enjoying a lot of them, so thank you. Back to you.
Yes. One comment that immediately jumps to mind after you said that is allegory is kind of the watchword, and there's a track in the Utena soundtrack, allegory, or allegoriist, and that's all I can think of, because this movie is functioning at the allegoriist level, I think. Yeah. A few comments. Regarding the end of the film, I know the producer mentioned that 5 sequences had to be cut from the overall feature, so that is likely part of it. I'm of two minds of it. I think that its very short runtime is ultimately to its benefit, because there are already kind of bits that drug got him a little bit, but overall it's sad that we couldn't see that finished animation in some capacity, which is nice. I guess we have to read the novels like a bunch of jerks.
But I can't read French.
You're learning.
Oh.
You're fired. We're going to lock you up in a monastery, so you could do nothing but learn French, so you can translate Hommes en Série.
Again?
No. But a lot of cogent points. I'm mostly just very glad you enjoyed it as much as you did. That opening especially is incredibly it draws you in very well. I think this and Lalo's follow-up, Time Masters, Les Maîtres du Temps, both do a really great job of having like very powerful like cold opens, kind of or Ennemi d'Alais openings that drag you in a good way. That sheer level of violence in the just kinetic energy, the way it cuts so frantically in a way that we don't really see a whole lot throughout the rest of the film. So good. But I won't go on for too long. Moving on to our special guest. Lauren, your overall thoughts on the film?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me on. Fantastic Planet is definitely like a departure from some of the other movies I've been on to talk about. But I think, as Tanner was saying, it's really topical to talk about this movie right now specifically. This movie is about using literacy specifically to overcome your oppressors. And I think that America, since we're currently puppeteering two proxy wars, one of them being a genocide, it's important that we talk about how to fight that. So I first heard of Fantastic Planet in college when I would always see people sharing screenshots and GIFs of the film on Tumblr. The Tumblr film girlies really loved this movie, like exactly as much as they loved every 90s Harmony Korine movie. I lived in the dorms when I was in college, and I was really scared of getting caught for piracy, so I never torrented Fantastic Planet back then. And then I just kind of forgot about it. But enter last fall, someone close to me gave me some shrooms, and I thought, what better way to relax than eat my psilocybin, take a bath, and watch a psychedelic movie with my laptop propped up on the toilet? That turned out to actually be a bad plan. Right as I started tripping, I got a news app notification that said Aaron Carter dead at 34. I was in a somber state. I watched Fantastic Planet, and it really did not make me feel much better, unsurprisingly. But it is a beautifully animated movie, so it was fun to watch on drugs, kind of like the first Avatar movie, but Fantastic Planet's actually good. There are a few central themes of this movie. The importance of knowing your oppressor's language, tactics, and dog whistles. That the retaliation oppressed people inflict upon their military superpower oppressors will never equal the aggression they were subjected to in the first place. And that oppressed people are well within their rights to strike back. And that unity and the cessation of infighting are absolutely necessary to have a successful uprising. I want to talk about two of these themes in a little bit more depth. The Ohm's retaliation against the Drogs, and that unity is central to any humanitarian uprising. So when Tara's little, he's playing with Tiva while she does her makeup, and he plays a prank on her where he switches out her white blush makeup for black makeup and then ruins the look that she was trying to put together. And so in retaliation, Tiva blows the black makeup into Tara's face, nearly choking him. And then as an added punishment, she summons up a storm cloud to intermittently drench Tare, basically, simulating drowning to him. So the punishment that Tare receives far outweighs the prank that he played on Tiva. This serves as a kind of symbol of the type of damage that people with huge military superpowers behind them can inflict onto the people they're oppressing without even really trying. When the Drogs are trying to hurt the Ohms, they can do serious damage. They carpet bomb the Ohms communities, asphyxiating and poisoning every Ohm in their vicinity. Even just using their bodies, they can stamp on the Ohms with their feet, killing dozens of them with little effort. Compared to the retaliation by the Ohms, whose casualties included a single Drog and the statues that the Drogs used to meditate, the destruction caused by the Ohms doesn't even come close to reaching the same magnitude. All of the lessons that the Ohms learn about the Drogs come from Tiva's headset, which Tare took with him when he escaped captivity. And I refuse to say steal here because he was well within his rights to take that when it was his lifeline. This headset winds up being the source of initial resistance by the savage Ohms, especially the bandits who we meet later, but ultimately, after learning that it is completely necessary to lure the Drogs' tactics to avoid being exterminated, all of the Ohms realize there's only one way forward, and that's uniting together. A really nice symbolic touch that I really liked in the Rocket City scenes is that the Ohms are all dressed alike, kind of symbolizing unity, organization, and coalition. And they're able to work together efficiently because they've set aside their differences, stopped infighting, and learned a way to work toward a common goal. They make a snap decision to hit the Drogs where it hurts when they visit Fantastic Planet. This is where the Ohms catch the Drogs meditating, joining the species from other planets to ensure the continuation of their species. The Ohms did not know about this mating ritual because this was not included in the lessons that they received through Tiva's earphones. And it's funny how even the Drogs keep the mystery of sex a secret from their children. The Ohms, the Ohms use their disintegration ray on their rockets to destroy the statues the Drogs use for their mating rituals and disrupt the Drog meditation tantric sex dance. This makes the Drogs feel tortured, confused, and disoriented. The Drogs love to meditate, and I think this is symbolic of how they themselves, or they view themselves as higher beings. It also seems to me like this movie has, in a way, predicted the future because in present day, 50 years later, the right wing has completely cornered the spirituality and wellness market. This type of white person is almost always a Nazi. In attacking the things that give the Drogs pleasure, they are able to effectively appeal to the Drogs and make their pleas to stop their genocide heard. The Drogs call a council meeting to discuss how to stop the Oms, and come to the conclusion that they must make peace. And this is, completely in contrast to earlier in the film where one of them gets killed and they're like, well, we have to up our extermination because we're the victims. It's really hard to watch this movie and not draw parallels between the Oms learning the language of their oppressors and reporters like Motaz, Dizan, Plestia, and so many others on the ground pleading with the West in plain English. This is so unique to other conflicts we've witnessed in our lifetime, and in terms of drumming up civilian support, it's been massively effective. Unfortunately, where I think this film falls a little flat is its ending. The film concludes with the Drog child receiving a new lesson about the history of the aggressions of the Drogs inflicted on the Oms, and in this way, we receive kind of a micro epilogue about the fate of the Oms. The solution winds up being literally a two-state solution. The Drogs get to keep their satellite fantastic planet for meditation, and the Oms create an artificial satellite planet for themselves to live peacefully away from the Drogs. They call this planet Terra after the planet they initially came from. But something I just thought about as Tanner was talking is this little epilogue we get is only from the Drog perspective, and it kind of reads to me a little bit like Americans teach children about the first Thanksgiving. Like, oh, we created peace and harmony. And it's like, no, you actually created something way fucking worse, but at least you're not killing them anymore, I guess. In my opinion, that solution's kind of spineless, and it's not a topical solution for any conflict we have in the world today, which turns this film into, ultimately a little tiny bit of a disappointment. We don't have the ability to create artificial new lands for oppressed people out of thin air, and while I commend this movie for conveying the message that oppressed people are well within their rights to fight back against genocide, I don't necessarily feel that advocating segregation is the answer either. However, the ending is the only thing I can meaningfully critique about this movie, and we shouldn't be looking to an art house film for the right answers to all of our problems anyway.
Yeah, that's a lot of incredible points there. I think, particularly spotlighting the relationship, that was certainly on my mind as well, the relationship between this film and how it may connect, obviously not intentionally, but it still does, to the Israel-Palestine conflict, particularly if looking to a historical example. The Algerian War is certainly, the sort of prior conflict to this one that obviously jumps to mind, but, similar in a lot of ways about, a colonized people rising up, or not even rising up, but just responding to aggression, really, from the colonizer. And I think, that's completely fair, particularly in, the film's final act, ostensibly. That's very, very clear in the completely disproportionate response to, a single Drog being killed is ostensibly to enact genocide against the Oms. The conclusion, if I were to not defend it, but I think it's something where the practicality, the practicality of the science fiction kind of interferes with the allegory in the sense that you probably would want a dedicated space for these people just because of the difference in scale and the danger that the wildlife on Yam poses to the Oms, but because it's also sort of suggested that they do directly interact. You see the Drog removing the goofy outfit. But again, I think that's a completely reasonable critique, to be clear, to say, because obviously, again, it's the practicality interfering with the messaging that it's building to, which I think they toe that line about as well as they can, all things considered, but it is still, again, just a quality of it being so rushed to missing those sequences. It maybe not as satisfying as it could be. But yeah, no, that's a great intellectual sort of analysis. I wholeheartedly agree. And thank you for being the one to so elegantly describe how it reflects the Israel-Palestine conflict, because I'd had some intention to, but I doubt I could have done it quite so well. So thank you, as always.
Of course.
My own thoughts in brief. The Fantastic Planet is a really curious kind of movie. I tend to lump it in with the two other animated films of 1973 targeted at more adult audiences, Belladonna of Sadness and Heavy Traffic, in that they're both interesting beasts, visually unique, often like kind of segmented and episodic in their structure. And, you know, made on the cheap, all things considered, but the results are incredibly distinct visuals and narratives in the world of theatrical feature animation, all from completely different places, all sort of originating from different camps, all owing a certain debt to Yellow Submarine, going back to the Beatles. I'm glad we could bring that back around.
Ringo reigns supreme.
It's a good balance between like children's story and cultural anthropology, or even like a faux nature documentary at times, particularly those wonderful interstitials with the wildlife on Yigam, beyond the alms and drogs that I really appreciate. And I think it on that level is where I find it to be the most effective, is in like flipping through an old, like a book from the 19th century on like biology or that sort of thing that catalogs insects and has like beautiful illustrations of them and that sort of thing. But they're kind of alien and weird because maybe they're working with a corpse or something. Like they don't feel quite correct in a way, anachronistic. But I think it's really effective on that level, and then obviously if you drill down deeper, there's levels. You get out of the film kind of what you bring to it in a lot of ways. And movies that do that are good and cool. I like that. Commenting on the score by Alain Goregel, which I really like. It's repetitive. It's a little repetitive. I know some critics have commented on that, but I think in the that's more of an issue if you're listening to it on its own. And even then, I've listened to it on its own quite a bit. It's a good movie score. It's fairly experimental, a lot of fuzz guitar, some minimal synths, but it's funky. In a really
so it
fun
was
way.
guitars. Okay, good.
Yeah, you got it. It spends a good deal of time showing us what life is like for the domesticated and feral Ohms. It has immediately establishes their sort of subhuman status, especially with that violent, chaotic death of Tara's mother in the film's opening, which I really like as an opening to a movie.
Did you also like Bambi?
Okay, so it's very distressing. Like, I don't like it in the sense that I enjoy it. I'm not a monster, but it is very effective. Also, this just occurred to me because of the Beatles connection, but much like Yellow Submarine, this movie opens with a giant blue hand attacking people because of the giant deadly glove in Yellow Submarine.
Bring up the Beatles so much. Just wasn't expecting it. Sorry.
But no, it's just a really effective opening. Even like discussing the headset, like in terms of like a narrative device of granting the Alms a certain amount of literacy of Yigam that they would not be privy to either way, and of stealing knowledge from the oppressor, you know, the immortal man stealing fire from the gods kind of thing almost, in the mythological sense and that almost children's story quality to it. That's really cool. But also, I just like it as a visual device and a device for just like deploying fun science fiction concepts. Just sort of these dry readings of like what the Ohms are like, their history, their strange like mortal god who was killed. They're so fun to just hear like what the Ohms the mythology of the Drogs, or even the brief bit we get about the Ohms and their homeworld, which is depicted in those stark just like micron pen drawings on white that looks like they just photographed some storyboards, but it's really cool. It's again got a lot of like wry kind of pitch black humor too. Like it's a funny movie at times in a way. I really like the weird monster that's like in a cage and has a big like nose with a bunch of tendrils at the end of it that just like grabs these weird flying fish things and just shakes them to death. Like it's not eating them or anything, it's just a thing designed for cruelty. What a horrible thing. I hope it dies. I hate it. It makes me
not a
profoundly
fan.
It makes me profoundly upset, but it's also so absurd that I can't help but be like, laugh? I don't know. It's just, it elicits a lot of weird responses. Also, I think it is worth noting that, like Tanner said, like, this is the movie where if you found it flipping on TV, it'd be a weird one. I watched this movie, like, I think I started, 10 minutes in. I think it was on Turner Classic Movies when I was, 10 or 11. I was very young when I first saw this film. It was very disorienting.
You were watching Turner Classic Movies at 10?
I would flip it on, and there was a...
God, you're so fucking cool.
I think I've just been owned. I think Tanner just publicly destroyed me.
I'm sorry, I meant that genuinely.
I think I've been killed. I've been de-omized.
Try to compliment your friend, accidentally humiliate him.
No, I think it's very funny. Let me be clear. But that was the perfect response. Thank you, Tanner. But no, I really love the absurdity of all the weird, creatures and all the horrible ways they, kill each other, on Yugam. It's a weird, harsh planet, even beyond, the terrible relationship between, the Ohms and the Drogs. And I think it's really exceptional. For this, episode, I ended up revisiting Laloux's full body of work, and I do think it is kind of readily the best thing he's done. As someone who has a fondness for Time Masters and enjoys Kandahar maybe more than I should. I don't know. It's not a great movie, but I have a solid time with it. And his, of course, his vast library of, well, not even vast, his decent-sized library of short films are all pretty darn good, and I like them. They're good and cool. But this is probably his most exceptional work, and I enjoy it a lot. But now we're going to take a brief ad break here, and then transition neatly into discussing animation, visual design. Ooh, my favorite part. So enjoy the advertisement. Welcome back. Another ad. MoviePalette.com. Go there. Buy a piece of art. Buy a custom piece of art if it's not already there. All the primary colors of scenes from your favorite movie. Your least favorite movie. A movie you think's just kind of okay and you watched it at 1 p.m. on TBS that one time.
All dogs go to heaven too.
And if you get it, use this code SQUAD15 for a discount on it that gives us some affiliate change. Back to discussing Fantastic Planet.
It's funny that's what the movie's called, considering just the last 5 minutes of the movie takes place on it.
Yes. Rein, what are your thoughts on the film's animation and visual design?
All I have to say is I wanted to mention the music is also great, like some of y'all already mentioned. It's very much of its time, clearly, but in the best way, and it definitely complements the visuals, which are also great.
I love that Ethan asked about the visuals and you immediately go to an auditory.
I'm not an animator.
Rein has
synesthesia. I
synesthesia.
don't have anything to say about the visuals, so I was like, I'll just go to the audio.
Did you say he had synesthesia?
Yeah, it's just synesthesia.
I'm sorry,
He's
Ethan, continue.
I agree. I love Goya's score. It's super good. They released an expanded one this year, I think. So if you want to listen to more tracks that aren't in the movie proper, listen to that soundtrack album. It's great. Tanner, thoughts on the film's animation and visual design?
I don't know what more I can say that I didn't already say in my overall thoughts because I admittedly forgot this was a question.
Everyone does.
Yeah. Sorry. I forget that you have more than the first two questions. It's beautiful. I think the minimalism, if anything, is in a very weird way, it draws you in to the movie more because you're able to focus on these finer details that kind of linger on the screen more, which allows you to sort of really admire and appreciate what the animation and then the film in general is trying to convey visually. And I think that is a strength of this more minimal animation type, that you're able to focus more on these types of details, and that's really my only takeaway. That I didn't say before.
Yes. No, that's completely fair. Yeah, that is sort of a quality of it sort of lingering on individual elements a bit more, is that you can appreciate them. And they're a bit more finely detailed than you'd expect from a lot of other animated films, just because of a quality of production that I will discuss later. Tim, overall thoughts on the film's animation and visual design?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, I think it's a great use of minimalism, kind of like what Tanner was just saying. I think that helps you like really get to look more closely at like all of the crazy designs that they have on display. Like one thing I want to mention is like that sequence at the end where like they're trying to escape and the Drogs are killing them in all of these different ways. I think like the way that they animated all of these different like killing techniques is like very fascinating to watch. Like it's awful, but like it's very interesting conceptually, and I think the way that they're animated really enhances like what you're getting out of that. And yeah, just overall, really solid. I think it's able to convey a lot of really interesting stuff with the way that they go about that.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I think the mechanical stuff, you don't see a lot of mechanical design such as it were in this film, but the end spotlights a lot of that. Those horrible rolling like balls that seem to have no external apparatus that are designed to just squash them, or that weird rocket ship that spits out blasts of light that stain metal. What a weird, cool idea. Like, it's not making like a spritz, like it's shooting paint or something. It makes that like whoom kind of sound effect. And I love that. That's so weird and cool.
Like,
and awful.
Specifically the ones that like come to my mind are like those things that are shooting out all those little like pellets that gas people to death. And then also that like vacuum thing that sucks people into spikes. Like those are just really interesting visually.
Yeah, they're all strange. They have this weird quality of they feel like horrible contraptions that would be devised in like the 19th century, in like some sort of awful popular mechanics. Like this is the kind of thing like it's very like Panopticon core. Like it's like some awful utilitarian is figuring out the best, most horrible way to kill people without any regard for scientific plausibility. And it's dreadful, but again, also like weirdly naive in a way that's it makes it more unsettling in a way. On IMO. But Austin, your overall thoughts on the film's animation and visual design?
Do you think any of those machines from the end influenced that third act of The Thief and the Cobbler that got cut from like the most of the releases of The Thief and the Cobbler? Have you ever seen that thing?
Oh, it's been a while. I'm not gonna lie.
Thief and the Cobbler is an interesting movie because there's like a couple of releases of it. There's like a heavily cut version, an American like Miramax Harvey Weinstein version, and then the original intended recobbled version. And there's like the death count between the three is really funny because it's like 5, 10, 5,000 people die in the original version. The third act is just a lot of contraptions fucking murdering people. Well, it's more so just a bunch of henchmen getting destroyed, but still. One thing I wanted to note about Fantastic Planet, there's motion blur in the opening sequence of Tara's mother running from those huge blue children. Motion blur on like just the trees in the foreground. I haven't read as much about this movie as Ethan has, but seeing motion blur on those branches flying by makes me assume that something akin to go motion was used. Go motion is a photographic technique where you either like quickly move an element right as the camera's taking the picture, or you put petroleum jelly on a glass plate near the camera and to make shit blurry. There's a couple ways to go about it, some objectively cooler than others. The actual term, like go motion though, was invented by Phil Tippett when he was at Industrial Light and Magic working on The Empire Strikes Back. That's how the AT-ATs or whatever have the blurry legs. And also the big robot from RoboCop, the ED-209 or whatever. But according to my shoddy internet research, the Polish-Russian animator Ladislav Starevich, was simulating motion blur in his animation as far back as the early 1920s. And guess where that bastard was working when he figured out how to do this? France! Coincidence? I think not. Back to you, Ethan.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how he was able to do that in a lot of his films, particularly Le Homme and Renard, The Tale of the Fox, which is a great movie. I jokingly refer to one of the techniques he uses. I think this might be the motion blur too, for his puppets. It's a stop motion smear. So a smear is like when like a frame just sort of like you just make it a big blob that snaps between distinct key positions. So he does a stop motion smear, which is functionally just yeeting the puppet off screen and recording it live. It's incredible. I think there's probably something to do with f-stop, but it's really remarkable in exposure length. My apologies. I'm bad with cameras. That wasn't obvious. I think it's really remarkable how they're able to achieve that effect. I have to imagine it's something to do with them being able to like shift focus or something. Just be able to shoot it out of focus. Something. Sorry, I'm reviewing the footage. I'm reviewing the tapes, and I want to figure out how they did that now. It's gonna mess with me because I was like, I had an idea. Now I don't. This sucks. Thank you, Austin, for ruining my day.
I don't
It's
think...
simple. They used computers, Ethan.
Yeah, I was about to say, actually, I don't think they had those motion-controlled, like, digital fucking piston things that Phil Tippett was using. So, it's a mystery. The French, shit. They figured something out.
Computers. They invented CGI without telling anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it.
Happens all
Jerry
the time.
Turnka himself. No, they gave the cutouts some LSD. It distorted their vision. This is how this works. I'm boring. That wasn't obvious.
I love you, Ethan.
Thank you.
The exasperated sigh. It's great.
Lauren, overall thoughts on the film's animation and visual design?
Yeah, I want to talk about kind of the influence that like the minimalist animation of this movie has had on animation as a whole. The less is more approach with a little bit more stillness that allows more of a focus on the dialogue and the story. The influence of that can actually be seen on the last couple episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And the use of extreme close-up shots with sometimes excessive detail to show like the grotesqueness of certain scenes. The influence of that can actually be seen in SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's what I was thinking as soon as you started saying that.
And if you can't tell, I'm being completely facetious, but back to you, Ethan.
No, those are very, very good pulls. That's a good bit. I appreciate it. Goodness. So, I guess I'll just transition to my own thoughts before I have a breakdown.
Like you haven't already.
Yeah, a little bit. Fantastic Planet's visuals are absolutely its most striking quality. There are very few films that come close to what it's doing, at least in the space of feature animation. Topor's designs are strange, often juvenile and absurd, but rendered in this anachronistic style, evoking, again, the woodcut illustrations of late 19th century in particular, with their hatching lines, particularly the often considerable use of varying weight in the pen strokes. You can usually see like where he's pressing down harder and almost flourishing at the end of a pen stroke. It's really, really interesting. But more than anything, the way those sort of 19th century illustrations contrast with the science fiction setting in a way that very effectively disorients the viewer. It also employs this muted palette too. And with the weird general off-kilterness of the anachronism, blends the grotesque and absurd in a way that characterizes a lot of his art. If you look at his material, it's again often absurd sort of scenarios, him just trying to pick at ideas as much as possible to generate something sort of weird and disorienting and disquieting. Particularly his sort of like barren landscapes almost. He likes to plop his figures down in like simple hills, and I'm sure it's not just because he's lazy and does all of his drawing in the summertime and no other time. But the result here is really effective, IMO. It creates this wonderfully uncanny quality that permeates the entire film. But Roland Topor didn't do anything in the animation studio. He contributed a lot of designs. He did actually contribute extensively to this film in a lot of ways, but He didn't do any of the actual animation or the making of the figures in it. That was handled by the artists in Prague, as helmed by René Laloux. What's up, Austin?
Ethan, tell them why he didn't go to Prague and help with the movie.
Because his mom said, "You shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't get mixed up in movies." And he was like, "Sorry, I'm not doing cartoon movies anymore." And instead, he made the wise decision of working with Roman Polanski.
Oh.
Oof.
He wrote The Tenant, which Polanski adapted into a film. But he was also in Nosferatu as Renfield, apparently.
Nosferatu.
There we go. Bring it back to SpongeBob. The Werner Herzog Nosferatu, to be clear. He did not time travel.
That we know of.
True. But of course, he didn't do anything. That was all the artists in Prague at the Jiří Trnka studio, which apparently was not named the Jiří Trnka studio at the time of production. So it's the studio that would become the Jiří Trnka studio, because I don't have a name for it, weirdly enough. But in Prague, in the current modern-day Czech Republic, then Czechoslovakia. So, sort of explaining the process, they would, for this film, they use thin sheets of Bristol paper and colored ink to bring to life a lot of Topor's designs as paper cutouts instead of cell animation, what we would think of, characters being inked and painted. Instead, they're using, a paper doll style. But that's the other interesting thing about this work, is that instead of using hinged cutouts like those used in previous Laloux-directed animations or the works of Lottie Reiniger, each pose is its own separate cutout figure. The result is far more fluid animation than what you would typically get with paper cutouts, but it also introduces a host of logistical complications that make retaking shots and making sure the movements are smooth way more difficult. Traditional pencil tests, as we would consider them, become a non-option. And the end result is something sort of between stop motion and cell animation, which is something that had been employed previously in a lot of early animation, like pre-cell animation, or, in countries where it was highly limited, particularly a lot of early Japanese shorts will sort of employ brief sequences of that style where they're using individual cutouts in between bits with the hinged guys. But to my knowledge, it hasn't been employed exclusively and for a feature, because there's no real hinged cutouts. And that's really cool and impressive. And so what ends up happening, too, is that the animated forms have really strong outlines, too, because they're literally paper being placed on top of a background, which is primarily what separates it, in my opinion, from Topor's concept art, aside from being literally brought to life and animated, because if those earlier short films are any indicator, Topor was no animator, because they are, hinged dolls in those films, basically. And so you have these bold outlines and more saturated colors that diverge wildly, again, from Topor's original illustrations, and give it this almost comic book bande dessinée quality that will characterize a lot of Laloux's later films. It just looks super good and distinct and pops on the screen in a way that I think just Topor's drawings don't. And again, we have examples of that in Les Escargots and Le Témour, which are very muted in a lot of ways. And again, it adds to the psychedelic quality of the film, too, having those more saturated colors, and it's just super attractive. And even if the film can sometimes be unintentionally silly, or the movement a little awkward at times, it's still highly unique and is the key factor in generating that otherworldly ambience that really defines Fantastic Planet, in my opinion. But that's all our time. I'm going to let you guys go, but I have had a ton of fun talking about Fantastic Planet, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to just throw in some final thoughts before I throw the plugs, as always. Tim, final thoughts.
Hey kids, do you watch Attack on Titan? Do you want to watch a story about people rising up? Shut up, Tanner. Do you want to see a story about people rising up against their giant oppressors, but good actually? Then watch Fantastic Planet. Back to you, Ethan.
Hell yeah. Dan, final thoughts.
Really interesting score, brilliant visually, really relevant to the current moment in time. There's so much more to the allegory that I would love to unpack, but we simply don't have time for that. This is really a movie you can dissect 7 ways to Sunday and still have 8 more Sundays that you can dissect with it. So yeah, back to you, Ethan. What the fuck did I just say?
Dissect.
It
Many
sounded
people are
smart.
dissecting this. Right. Final thoughts.
I haven't seen Attack on Titan, but from what I understand about Attack on Titan, Tim had a great ending, so I'll just copy paste his ending.
Yes.
I didn't know.
It's time to attack on Titan. Austin, final thoughts.
I can just guess how many people in the Netherlands are shaking in their boots because this movie exists. Think about it. Statistically, they're the world's tallest people on average. Look it up. And you know what? If enough people watch Fantastic Planet, one day we might rise up and finally destroy the Dutch. Back to you, Ethan.
I thought it was just tall people, in which case, Shaq, I'm coming after you. I'm gonna beat you like Aaron Carter did. I'm really bringing it back.
R.I.P.
Dutch, Drog, both start with a D. It makes you think. D's, Drogs.
Fuck.
Drog? Drog sounds like drug. Oh.
Oh.
I'm making connections all over the place. Lauren, final thoughts.
Can you just like surround me in watermelon emojis? I would really appreciate that.
Let's go! Fantastic Planet is a remarkable, wonderful experiment. It straddles the line of political allegory, children's film, science fiction, fantasy, adventure, horror, and even comedy. It's a really visually distinctive work of art that possesses a certain clinical coldness that might off-put some viewers, but I think that's intentional. And for what it lacks in warmth, it more than makes up in its weird, lurid visuals and dreamy score. A wonderful effort from Laloux, Tapor, Godegail, and the talents at the Turnka Animation Studio that comes highly recommended from me. But now I have to do the fun bit. Actually, this bit's good. I would like to thank Lauren once again. Offer one more opportunity if you want to point anybody towards any social media things or projects that might be on the back burner for now.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to follow me on socials, my handle on everything is at Lauren Doritos, on account of Doritos rhymes with DeVito, which is my actual name. I have nothing to plug right now. I'm not doing comedy right now because I got hit by a car and I can't find a way to make that funny yet. But as soon as I think of a way to make that funny, you know I'm going to do it. Love your thoughts and prayers that I get a nice big settlement check, and maybe one day I'll be motivated to write some more material.
Heck yeah, we're all thinking and praying for that large settlement check. And thank you so much for joining us. You offered some remarkable insights and just really incredible commentary, and we can't thank you enough for bringing that to the table. You delivered so eloquently, and it was much appreciated. Yeah, thank you so much. Now to pivot from thoughtful, earnest discussions of how film might relate to current events. For all of you watching / listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment to boost us in the algorithm. Who do you side with? Ohms? Are you Team Ohm or Team Drog? Or Team that
Don't
one weird
say
guy
that,
who
dude.
shakes things to death? If you are Team Drog, we will remove your account and block you. Let me be clear.
Remove your account from YouTube.
Yes, I will call my friend Jonathan Google, and he'll redacted. Redacted.
Redacted.
Be sure yeah, you get it. Be sure to check out the version on Spotify and all the other various audio podcast platforms, because we are also there. And if those services offer the ability to leave ratings, be sure to give a Hive 5 stars, give them a comment there, same as usual, and give us some money on Patreon. Do it. We need it. Clearly, we're all going deranged. We're all stir crazy. But more than anything, thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten this far, if not, then no thank you, I guess. I guess I'm not thanking you by dint of you not listening to this. I'm getting existential now. I hope you enjoyed this recording that is longer than the feature that we're discussing. And tune in next time for... Bye.
Farewell.
I slid my ticket across the table and I said, "Sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl."